The rain had been chasing me for hours, tapping relentlessly on my windshield like a warning I refused to hear. I didn't mind the storm. It matched the noise inside my head. After 200 miles and 100 second guesses, I finally turned left onto Hollow Street. It looked exactly how it sounded. The trees leaned too far over the cracked road, their limbs like long fingers brushing against one another in secret. The houses were quiet, dark, almost shy. And then I saw it, my new home. An old Victorian thing, wrapped in fog and shadow, standing apart from the others like it had been exiled. The iron gate creaked as I pushed it open, a high-pitched whine that crawled up my spine. I told myself it was just the wind. I told myself a lot of things lately. The landlord, Mr. Halpern, had barely spoken when I met him earlier. He handed me the keys without a smile and muttered something I thought was a joke at the time. "You'll be fine here. Just don't go messing with the locked room upstairs." Now that I was standing in front of it, the house towering over me like it was watching, the joke didn't land so well. Inside, the air was thick and still, like the house had been holding its breath for years. The wooden floors creaked beneath my boots, and faded wallpaper peeled in long strips like skin. Furniture sat exactly where it had been left. Heavy, old, and elegant, but tired. I couldn't tell if it felt haunted or just lonely. I unpacked the basics and tried to settle in. Tea helped. So did the soft hum of the kettle and the way the couch groaned beneath my weight like it was stretching after a long nap. For a moment, things felt quiet in a good way, until I heard the sound. A soft creak, floorboards upstairs. I froze. I was alone. I knew that, but I grabbed my flashlight and my phone anyway. I moved slowly, heart thudding against my ribs. The staircase groaned under each step as I climbed. The hallway was even colder than before. Then I saw the door. At the end of the hall, plain and narrow, and open, just a sliver. I know for a fact it had been locked. I walked toward it, like something pulled me there. The door creaked as I pushed it fully open. Inside was dust, cobwebs, a broken vanity, and an old wardrobe standing like a coffin on end. Empty except for one thing. Footprints. Bare. Small. Leading in circles on the dusty floor. I didn't step inside. I closed the door, locked it with trembling fingers, and backed away. Back in bed, I tried to write it off. Just the wind, an old house settling, my nerves getting the best of me. But as I turned off the lights and closed my eyes, I heard it. A whisper. Soft. Inside the walls. "Help me." I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard it again, that voice. So faint, I almost believed I imagined it. But I didn't. I know what I heard. Help me. It wasn't the wind. It wasn't a dream. It was real. By morning, the fog outside was thicker, blanketing the world in white. The house felt colder, quieter, like it was waiting for something. Or someone. I made strong coffee and sat by the window, notebook in my lap, pen in hand, trying to pretend I was still here to write. That's what I told myself when I packed up my life and came to this town. I needed a break. A reset. Time away from deadlines, noise people. But truthfully, I wasn't just running to something. I was running from something. And now, I'd run straight into something else entirely. The footprints in the locked room still haunted me. I hadn't dreamed those. Dust doesn't lie. Someone, or something, had walked in there recently. And that door had been shut when I moved in. I needed answers. By mid-morning, I found myself in the town library. It was old and smelled like paper and secrets. The woman at the front desk wore glasses on a chain and looked at me like I was a question she'd already answered a dozen times. "Hi," said. "I just moved into the house on Hollow Street. Number 9. Her eyes narrowed slightly. "The Grayson house." I hesitated. "Is that what it's called?" It was. Back when someone still lived there. Her tone made my skin prickle. "Do you know anything about it?" The woman leaned back, thoughtful. "Only that it's been empty for over 20 years. People say it's cursed, but this town's full of old stories. You'd be better off not digging too deep. That's the thing with people who warn you not to dig. It always means there's something buried. I spent the next 2 hours combing through old newspapers and town records. Most were dull: permits, real estate transfers, complaints about dogs barking and fences falling. But then, in a yellowed clipping from 1986, I found it. Local girl vanishes from Hollow Street. 16-year-old Lila Grayson was reported missing yesterday evening after failing to return home. Police searched the house and surrounding woods, but found no sign of the girl. Lila was last seen in her bedroom, reading. No forced entry. No witnesses. The article ended cold. No follow-up. No resolution. She simply disappeared. Lila. The same house. The same locked room. I copied the article into my notebook. Heart thudding. Back at the house, I stood at the top of the stairs, staring down the hallway at the narrow door. I didn't want to open it again, but I had to. I unlocked it, pushed the door wide, and stepped inside this time. The air was stale, heavy. Dust stirred around my boots. I walked slowly to the wardrobe and pulled the door open. Empty, but something about it felt wrong. I tapped the back panel. It sounded hollow. I pried gently at the wood, and it gave way. Behind the panel, hidden in the wall, was a small space. Inside it, wrapped in a faded silk scarf, was a book. A journal. Lila's name was written inside the cover in delicate, looping script. I sat cross-legged on the dusty floor and opened it. The first page read, "If someone finds this, it means he's still in the house." I stared at those words, so long they burned into the backs of my eyes. If someone finds this, it means he's still in the house. My first instinct was to laugh it off. Nervous laughter, the kind you use to keep from screaming. But the air in that hidden space was too still, too cold, and the handwriting was too real to ignore. I turned the page. March 3rd. He came again last night. I heard him in the hallway. He never knocks. He just waits. I don't know how he gets in. The door is always locked in the morning. I tried telling Mother, but she just gave me more pills. She says I make things up, that I dream too vividly, but I know I'm not dreaming. He's real, and he's watching me. I read the entry twice. The handwriting was shaky, rushed, like it had been written in fear. I flipped through more pages, each one darker than the last. Lila's entries blurred the line between fear and madness. She described shadows moving without light, the sound of breathing behind her mirror, whispers that echoed even when the house was silent. And then something worse. March 17th. He's inside the walls. I heard him whispering my name while I was sleeping. I tried to scream, but nothing came out. When I woke up, there were scratches on the floor near my bed. I didn't put them there. Mother says I'm losing time. I think she is too. The final entry was dated 2 days before her disappearance. March 20th. I found the trapdoor. That was it. No explanation. No sketch. No description. Just that haunting line and a blotch of ink where the pen must have lingered too long. I closed the journal slowly, my hands damp with sweat. Somewhere in this house there was a trapdoor. And maybe someone's still using it. I didn't want to believe it. Not really. But I also couldn't ignore the shiver running down my spine, or the sudden sense that I wasn't alone in the room. I stood up quickly and backed toward the door. That night, I kept the journal on my bedside table, unable to leave it out of sight. The rain came again, soft at first, then heavier, pounding against the roof like a warning. I buried myself in blankets, told myself I was safe, until the whisper came back. Maya. My name. This time it wasn't from the walls. It was from under the floor. I didn't move. I couldn't. For a full minute, I lay frozen in bed, barely breathing, eyes fixed on the wooden floor just a few feet away. I had heard it, my name, whispered softly, too clear to be imagination, too real to ignore, and it came from beneath me. I swung my legs over the edge of the bed, the floor cold beneath my feet, and grabbed the flashlight from the nightstand. The silence had returned. Thick, expectant. My heart was beating so hard I could feel it in my throat. I crept toward the center of the room, crouched, and pressed my ear to the floorboards. Nothing. But I knew what I heard. I tapped on the boards, soft, slow knocks. 1 second later, I heard 3 knocks in return. I leapt back so fast I nearly dropped the flashlight. That wasn't echoes. That wasn't the house settling. That was a reply. The journal. I scrambled for Lila's journal and flipped to the last page again. I found the trapdoor. If it existed, it had to be somewhere in this room. Or maybe in the hallway. The attic? The basement. I hadn't even looked down there yet. I forced myself to move. To do something. The house wasn't going to offer up its secrets easily, but I wasn't going to wait for them to find me. I searched the bedroom floor inch by inch, tapping and listening. Eventually, in the far right corner of the room beneath the threadbare rug, I felt something strange. A draft, cold and faint, against my fingers. I pulled the rug back and saw it a seam in the wood, not just between boards, but in the shape of a square, barely noticeable. I pressed down and the wood groaned. Then I pulled. A narrow trapdoor lifted with a low, aching creak, revealing a short wooden ladder leading into darkness. I should have closed it, walked away, called someone, anyone. But instead, I grabbed my flashlight and started down. The air was damp, like wet stone and old earth. The space beneath the house wasn't quite a basement. It was more like a crawl space, but wider than it should have been. As if someone had carved it out on purpose. The flashlight flickered once, then held. Shadows danced on the dirt walls as I moved. The silence was heavier here, thick enough to choke on. But worse than the silence was the smell. Sweet, rotting, familiar in a way that made my stomach turn. That's when I saw them, faint scratches along the wall. Long, uneven. Fingers, maybe. Someone had tried to claw their way out. And then something else. Words. Carved into the wood beam at eye level, with something sharp. He doesn't live here. He waits. My breath caught. Something shifted behind me. Not loud. Not close. But enough to make me run. I climbed the ladder 2 steps at a time, slammed the trapdoor shut, and threw the rug back over it like a child hiding from the monster under the bed. Except this one might really be there. I didn't sleep. Again, I sat in bed, knees drawn to my chest, staring at the rug that now covered the trapdoor. Every creak of the house made me flinch. Every gust of wind felt like breath on the back of my neck. My flashlight sat on the nightstand, still faintly glowing, battery slowly dying like me. At some point around 4 a.m., I opened Lila's journal again. I wasn't reading it anymore, just staring at the pages. Her words were beginning to feel like whispers of my own thoughts. There's a strange comfort in knowing someone else went mad in the same place you're losing your mind. But was she mad? Or was she right? The next day, I forced myself outside. I needed sunlight, motion, normal. The town square was small and quiet, just a few shops and a diner. I went in for coffee I didn't want and warmth I couldn't feel. The waitress was kind. She had a tired smile and a name tag that said June. "You're new," she said, pouring me a refill. "Let me guess. Hollow Street." I nodded, bracing for the usual look. She raised her eyebrows. "You actually moved into that place?" "Trying to," I said, voice thin. "You know anything about it?" She hesitated, looking around like she didn't want to be overheard. Then she slid into the booth across from me. Uninvited, but welcome. My mom used to talk about that house. Said it was bad luck. Said a girl went missing there a long time ago. Her eyes searched mine. "You're not the first to hear things in there, you know." I didn't answer. I didn't have to. June glanced at her watch and stood up. "You should talk to Charlie. He used to be a cop. He worked the Grayson case." She scribbled an address on a napkin. "He doesn't like to talk about it much, but maybe he'll make an exception." I found Charlie's house that afternoon. It was a small, ranch-style home with yellow siding and a porch that groaned as I stepped onto it. He answered after the second knock. Gray beard, sharp eyes, and a posture that told me he hadn't really retired. "Let me guess," he said. "Hollow Street." Word traveled fast in this town. He didn't invite me in, but he didn't shut the door either. "What happened to Lila Grayson?" I asked. He looked past me for a long moment, like the answer was out there somewhere, buried under years of silence. "She vanished," he said finally. "No break-in. No signs of a struggle. Just gone. No suspects." "One," he said quietly. "Her stepfather. But nothing stuck. No evidence. The case dried up like the rest of this town." Then he reached into a drawer near the door and pulled out an old manila folder. "This was never meant to leave the station," he said, almost to himself. "But it doesn't matter anymore." Inside were copies of police reports, statements, and one old photograph. A family portrait. Lila, maybe 14, sat between her mother and a tall man with a sharp jaw and hollow eyes. Something about his face made my skin crawl. Not because he looked angry, but because he didn't look anything. Emotionless. Blank. Like the smile was painted on. "That's the stepfather?" I asked. Charlie nodded. "Gerald Knox. Said he never laid a finger on her. But something about him. The girl was terrified of him. She wrote about him in her diary. Said he'd appear in her room without opening the door." I looked closer at the photo, and then I stopped breathing. Behind the family, barely visible in the old image, was a mirror. And in the mirror, something else was standing. Not Gerald. Not Lila. A man. Pale. Watching. His eyes met the camera. And I swear, I'd seen those eyes before. That night, I couldn't get the photo out of my head. The man in the mirror didn't belong in that picture. Or anywhere. He was watching them. Watching me now. Back at the house, I went straight to the trapdoor again. I didn't want to go down, but I had to finish this. Whatever was down there, it had waited long enough. This time, I brought a knife and a lantern. The crawl space hadn't changed. Same cold. Same smell. Same suffocating silence. But tonight, I noticed something I hadn't before. Marks on the far wall, half buried beneath dust and dirt. I brushed them off. A second door. Smaller. Rougher. I pushed it open. Beyond it was a hidden room. Stone walls, a mattress, chains on the floor. And something worse. Photographs. All of them of girls. Some old. Some recent. One of me. Pinned to the wall. I turned to run. But I froze when I heard it. Breathing. From the dark. A figure stepped into the lantern light. He wasn't a ghost. He wasn't a demon. He was real. Tall, pale, empty-eyed. And exactly the same as the man in the mirror. He didn't speak. Just smiled. And I understood he had lived here all along below the house. Watching. Waiting. Feeding on fear, maybe. Or just hiding in the quiet cracks of the world where people don't look. I ran. I didn't fight. I ran like my life depended on it, because it did. I barely made it up the ladder before I heard him behind me. I slammed the trapdoor shut and threw a bookshelf over it. Then I ran outside into the cold, endless night and didn't stop until I reached the town square. Charlie believed me. June 2. They called the police. The crawl space was empty by the time they arrived. No man. No photographs. No chains. Just a single item left on the floor near the trapdoor. Lila's locket, with her picture inside. They never found the man, but they did find more journals buried in the walls. Not just from Lila, but from other girls. All telling the same story. Different years, different names. Same man. He didn't age. He didn't leave. He waited.